And I thought, if we could do that first, then he doesn't have to sit through the rest of the meeting
Sounds fine with me.
with you.
And did we already open that public hearing?
No, this is just opening.
Okay, so Rob has the wording of the announcement.
Yeah, it should be in the binder.
It is.
Thank you, Susan. All right, I see Kathy Kidd and I've tried to promote her. Oh. Okay, Kathy, you've declined to be promoted as a panelist.
Yeah, she does.
There we go. And there's Bob. He is so fast to put up his hand.
Hi, Kathy, how's it going?
Okay, how are y'all?
Pretty good.
Good.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello. All right, so it's about 6:31. We'll wait a minute or so. So Stephanie was saying that, let's see, the definitive subdivision special permit residential compound has asked to continue at the last minute. And Eric Carlson is here from the state for the floodplain overlay zoning amendment review. So we might move that up to the top of the agenda so he can move on after that. And Bob, I guess the public announcement for that for the floodplain overlay is available in the binder.
So Peter, if you're starting the meeting, you do need to read the remote meeting instructions.
Yep, and I'm just about to do so.
Okay.
So, welcome to the regular Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Today is Monday, October 16th, 2023. This meeting is being conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board commission members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. To use Zoom, you will need to use the link on the agenda or download the Zoom application and create an account or use one of the call-in numbers listed on the agenda. You will need the webinar ID to join by phone only. While conducting meetings remotely, we endeavor to keep meeting operations as close to our standard procedures as possible. However, use of this platform will necessitate some additional meeting protocols. While the board commission members or commissioners and applicants will be on video and audio, public participants will join the webinar as attendee, meaning they are muted and with no video feed from them. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using the raised hand function found under participants from Zoom, or make a request with the Q&A function. If you're joining only by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. If an applicant wishes to display materials, please make the request of the chair and email the materials to the board staff for sharing on screen. When starting testimony, please state your name and address for the record. Additional details can be found on page 2 of the agenda, which has been posted on the town website under the calendar. Thank you. So to start off, we'll do a roll call. Looks like we have a few members here tonight. Kathy Kidd, are you present?
Present.
Robert Stetson,
Present.
Mickey Wolf,
Present.
and Peter Deshane present. So that's what we have tonight for board members. So our first item tonight, we're going to actually switch around the agenda a little bit. We're going to start with a public hearing for a zoning amendment, Chapter 35, 235 of the Easton Town Code, floodplain overlay district. Bob, do you have a notice to read available?
Sure. I do. In accordance with the provisions of Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Easton Planning and Zoning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, October 16th at 6:30 p.m. to be held remotely for the purpose of receiving public comments concerning a proposal to amend the Easton zoning bylaw, Chapter 235 of the Easton Town Code, -47 floodplain overlay district in conformance with FEMA requirements for local floodplain management. Excuse me. This meeting will be conducted remotely via Zoom. The virtual meeting link will be contained within the posted agenda at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Copy of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is available for review at the Planning and Economic Development Office at 136 Elm Street during regular business hours, and is also available on the Planning Board page at www.easton.ma.us. This notice is also available at masspublicnotices.org. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated for the public hearing. Peter Deshane, Chair.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Stephanie, do we have no, Mr. Carlson is already here.
So I can give a summary. I did include in the packet a report that identified each of the changes, the amendments within the section 234-47 flood hazard overlay district. The reason, so the board will remember we had a discussion on this proposed amendment back last year, trying to move it forward for May town meeting. The board had several good questions that I was not able to answer at the time. I put the report together so that you could see why each of the sections were being changed. The primary, what happened here is that just prior to 2020, FEMA identified some discrepancies in the state's model flood hazard bylaw, which is what most municipalities, including Easton, used to develop their own zoning, their flood zone bylaw. So changes were made in 2020, and then some additional changes were made in 2021 that would ensure that communities participating in the National Flood Insurance Program had all the requirements that they needed in their local regulations to be eligible to participate in the program. And as I mentioned before, even though flood insurance is pretty expensive, if it is in Easton discounted because we do participate in the flood insurance. We have an approved flood hazard bylaw, and our residents who are located in the flood zone benefit from the program and being able to get the discounted flood insurance. These changes weren't made, I think it's important to know, because of increased flooding, but can be considered to some degree to address that issue. It's also important to note that these changes or amendments don't change the flood insurance rate map, which is managed at the federal level and not at the local level. And I believe the last time that that the flood insurance map was amended, and Eric can certainly answer that, I believe it was in 2018. So this doesn't change, it doesn't put more people in the flood hazard area or remove people who were formerly in it. It doesn't change that at all.
Okay, so can we start by reviewing the changes that you've outlined for us?
Sure. So section B This section eliminates the reference to each panel of the flood insurance rate map. I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity back before it was digitized and available online. The way the town received their flood map was in several what they call panels. And they looked something like a road map, folded up something like a road map, and were a little difficult to manage. They were all listed, so every town usually had multiple panels that comprised their floodplain overlay district, and each of those panels was referenced within the bylaw. The reason for eliminating that was to refer readers to the most current Bristol County Flood Insurance Study, which is available online. Or they could get the paper copy, but it eliminated listing each of the panels of the flood map individually. And the reason for doing that was because it was easy to either miss a panel or get a suffix or date for the panel incorrectly listed in the bylaw. And that would mean that the town would then have to go to town meeting to correct those errors. And it also could result in FEMA not accepting the law. And I'll pause for a moment after each, so if anyone has a question, you can ask Eric. The next change is Section C. This inserts the responsibility of floodplain administrator into the code and designates that in Easton, that's going to be the environmental planner. That position by default has been the floodplain administrator in the town, and this codifies it.
So I have a question there. What does a floodplain administrator do?
Really, they answer questions about the floodplain in the town. If people are looking for maps, looking to identify if something's in a district. They also ensure that projects proposed or potentially affecting the function of a floodplain are reviewed and the state wetland protection law appropriately administered to the project. So
if I recall from last year, like they actually make some certain determinations depending on applicability and things like that. I think that's actually coming up as one of the follow-up items that we're changing.
Well, would it so I'm not sure your question.
Mm-hmm.
So they do ensure that projects that are proposed or are potentially affecting the floodplain are reviewed and the state wetland protection laws appropriately administered to the project. And that's already a function of the conservation agent. But I'm not sure, Peter, if you could repeat your question.
Oh, I just remember from the last year's model by the bylaw, there were certain certain determinations were left up to the floodplain administrator. Maybe that's just what you just spoke of.
Right. I don't know. It's not any different than how it currently works when projects are being reviewed and made, and we make sure that they comply with the state wetlands protection. But
Mr. Carlson is
waiting. Yep.
There are some administrative requirements that have to be accomplished by that person also. There, for instance, are notification requirements that are in the bylaw. One of them was already in your existing bylaw, notification of watercourse alteration. For instance, if a watercourse is altered, then the state has to be notified, FEMA has to be notified, abutting communities have to be notified. There's a notification requirement for submission of new technical data. If a project takes place which might change floodplain, flood elevations, or land that would be subject to flooding, data has to be submitted to FEMA, and that notification has to take place. So administrative requirements like that would be carried out by the floodplain administrator. Also, FEMA needs a point of contact within a community. So if FEMA has information they want to give to the community, or if they have a question about something that's happening in a community, they will have a person and a point of contact to ask that question, to get that information. So mostly those are administrative requirements.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie, I suppose you can go on to the next. other
Yep.
change.
So the next change is sections E through H. These sections are a FEMA requirement for compliant floodplain overlay district zoning. They, the actions spelled out in these sections are all standard practices as part of the planning board's review process and the Conservation Commission's review process. So the board may recall the recent permits that were granted for Owl Ridge and Sawmill Village. Both of those were sites that were shown to have floodplains at elevations not supported by engineering. The applicant's engineers were required to complete the necessary engineering to support their determination of the actual floodplain elevations. And we just had this arise recently with Howard Street, the common driveway, where they're doing the work. So they have to submit all the proper calculations and paperwork that support their determinations of where the actual floodplain elevations are located, and submit letters of map revision to FEMA. And again, in the instance of Owl Ridge and Sawmill, Owl Ridge had already submitted theirs. They've proceeded with their project after getting FEMA review and approval of their LOMAR, and Sawmill is in the process of submitting theirs.
Are there any questions on that?
Yeah, I mean, does this make the process easier, harder? Is it neutral?
It doesn't change. It really doesn't change it.
Stephanie, forgive me. I can't remember, because we did have a fairly extensive discussion on this last year, and I know we had a lot of questions, and I just can't remember, because it was in relation to specific language. Do you recall what the primary issues were that we were inquiring of?
I think it was just generally you had questions because you probably weren't fully versed in the floodplain overlay district bylaw, because generally the conversations and working through it go through the engineers. It's part of our review process when we have the peer review conducted in the stormwater management review. If there are any floodplains, to ensure that either the floodplains aren't filled, which would require compensatory storage, and if the compensatory storage is provided, then our peer reviewer ensures that the project engineers have done that correctly. And then the same like with Sawmill and Owl Ridge. You may remember how long both of those projects, reviewing the floodplain elevations and the documentation that was submitted. Sawmill was more complicated than Owl Ridge, but we had to have Woodard and Curran's flood manager do the review for us on that one. Does that answer your question? I think.
Not really. I do remember we had some specific questions, but I think
Yeah.
it's been so long, I'm sure, unless
Yeah.
Peter has a memory.
I think so, and some of the questions were, how would it affect residents, and was it requiring more oversight by the town? And Eric can speak to this. I mean, I've reviewed it, I've gone through it. I don't think it provides more overview on the town's part than it did previously. Eric, can you answer that?
Okay, I was actually, while you were talking, I was actually trying to find a copy of the bylaw so I could look and see what the sections are. Actually, I just found it. So I think you're talking about sections E through H, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of them, section E is permits are required for all proposed development. Now, this standard is not meant to take the place of permits that you already require. So you already require building permits, you already require orders of conditions through conservation, and whatever other approvals you have approvals for subdivisions, Board of Health approvals, and other things like this. The permit, the floodplain development permit, if for lack of a better word, is not meant to take the place of that, but it's a requirement that a permit of some kind is required for anything that's defined as development in the floodplain. So, and again, the floodplain administrator will have to make sure that all things that meet the definition of development, which is a defined term in the bylaw, have a permit, or if it's not a formal permit, it has to be a review and approval process. So that might involve requiring a permit or a review and approval for something that you didn't previously require a permit for. For instance, sometimes a fence might require a permit, might not require a permit, depending on the fence. Some retaining walls don't require permits typically, I think, depending on the height of a retaining wall. So low walls in a floodplain could have an effect on the flood characteristics. So somebody will have to review that and approve it. Just as a, for instance, things in floodways, floodway is part of the floodplain. It's around the channel of a river, and it's identified on the flood insurance rate map. Within a floodway, a fence could have a significant effect on flooding by trapping debris and holding water back, and acting like a dam, for instance. So a fence that might not have required a permit before might require a permit or a review and approval now. So that could have some changes. That's one of the things that's new in the updated model bylaw that we put out in 2020. It is not a new requirement for FEMA. It's just not something that was in our model bylaw before. That's E. F is to assure that all necessary permits are obtained. Again, this is an administrative function, so a project might require permits at a lot of different levels, including permits at the local level, but also at the state level and the federal level. The requirement that those permits are issued is not new, because the state might require a permit of some kind. Again, the federal government might require a permit for something, but now the town, the floodplain administrator, has to make sure that those other permits are obtained as part of the local review process. That would be part F. G, that's not new. H, I mentioned before, that's a notification requirement. So if there's a project that might potentially change flooding characteristics, that data has to be submitted to FEMA, and my office would be notified also. So that would be E through H.
And so this is ringing a bell now in terms of what we were talking about. Peter, you may remember better than me, but I think, the sentiment was we're adding another level of review, of bureaucracy. What's the benefit to us? I think Stephanie's kind of touched on that earlier in her remarks, but
Right, but if I could also, we do all of this already. This is part of the review process.
well, I guess maybe the question that I have then is, does formalizing it in this manner provide any additional level of certainty, or does it streamline the review process in some way? Because I think Stephanie pointed out two very good examples where the process sort of dragged a little bit. Does this formalizing this, does this cut down on some of the red tape, so to speak?
I don't think it doesn't elongate the process and it doesn't shorten the process. We don't frequently get applications where we get applications where the floodplain might not be located exactly on the ground as it's shown on the map. And you can get a letter of map amendment when it's pretty straightforward and the engineering's pretty straightforward. If you need to get a letter of map revision, there's a lot more engineering that goes into that. That's a major change in determining what the base flood elevation is and where the line is. And we don't get a lot of projects like that where someone's proposing to work in an area and do the amount of work or changes that the Sawmill project and Owl Ridge were proposing.
Yep. And then I guess just as far as like the FEMA guidance, which the state reviewed and adopted as part of a model bylaw that we're considering incorporating into our bylaw. I mean, are there like a la carte like kind of areas, or is this all just like what every town like across the country has at some point either thought about or decided to incorporate into their municipal, like planning guidelines and rules?
I can answer that.
Yep.
If I may. Here's the way it works in Massachusetts. Communities participate in the National Flood Insurance Program voluntarily. Nobody's required to do that. In Massachusetts, all but 10 communities do participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. Participation makes flood insurance available through that program to property owners and policy holders within the community. Now, in order to participate, a community has to enforce all of FEMA's standards, and FEMA's standards for development and other activity in the floodplain are in Code of Federal Regulations 44, Part 60.3. So all communities that participate nationwide, all communities have to meet that same set of standards. In Massachusetts, most of those standards are already enforced through state regulations, and in particular, through the State Building Code and the Wetlands Protection Act. So in Massachusetts, in order for a community to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, they have to adopt all of the stuff that isn't already in a state regulation. So what we've done at my office is we've gone through the federal regulation and we've picked out everything that isn't in a state regulation, and that's what's in our model bylaw. So our model bylaw has all of FEMA's standards that aren't enforced through a state regulation as it is. And like Stephanie described, in 2020, we updated the state model bylaw at the insistence of FEMA Region 1 because they felt that we didn't have some things in our state model bylaw that they thought should be in that model bylaw. So that's why there are several new items being added here to what this draft is that Stephanie's prepared.
Yep. Okay. I mean, I think that pretty much answers it for me. I mean, if we want to continue to participate in the program, we need to approve, no more and no less than what we're looking at right now as far as the these regulations apply to our bylaw.
No less than what's in the draft. Mm-hmm. You can have other additional things if you wanted to have other standards in addition, provided that they don't conflict with any of FEMA's requirements. You could have, and some communities do, but that would be up to you.
Yeah, but at this point, what we're looking at right here is just like those baseline things that we need to adopt, right? Yeah, this is based pretty much directly off of the state model bylaw, which is what we need to do in order to continue to participate.
Yes.
Okay. Guess not sure we can go through any other changes, but I'm not think I really have any other questions after looking at it that way.
No, well, because you know what, that was another question that we had last time. Was the interplay with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act. So that was a very helpful clarification for me as well.
Yep. One last question that I had actually last year was on the variances. there were like two kinds of communities, like, and different ones have a different way of granting a variance. Some could do it within the community, others had to kind of go through the state or something. Is that?
That is true. And that applies to variances to the state building code. Like I said, most of FEMA standards, all of them that relate to construction of buildings are in the state building code. Variances to the state building code for almost every community are issued at the state level. There's a state building code appeals board. There are a handful of communities that have a local building code appeals board. Easton isn't one of them. I can only off the top of my head think of 3. Boston is one of them. The other 2 are on Cape Cod. So most communities have building code variances issued at the state level, and that includes Easton.
And then the J, the permitted uses, is this like a major change, or just kind of more like a just really spelling it out for us what the.
So I don't think this one was changed. Let's see. Is
Mhm.
J one of mine? No, J wasn't changed.
Mhm.
This is the existing.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, wait a minute. I need to look at the right thing here. J was not changed. The next standard that was changed was K. This section added a requirement within the flood zone AO and AH that adequate drainage paths must be provided around structures on slopes to guide flood waters around and away from proposed structures, ensuring protection of property against flood damage. Then, and that was K8, K9 requires that any recreational vehicles located in the flood zone must be elevated and secured in accordance with the zone's regulations for foundation and elevation requirements. So this is to prevent if there is a flood that comes through and you have recreational vehicles stored in the flood zone, that it prevents them from being carried away by flood waters and becoming safety and property damage hazards.
Yep, and just for example, that applies to like new proposed recreational vehicles, not existing ones, or, well, I guess if they want insurance, they have to comply to these. There's not,
Right.
There's grandfathering involved.
Right, it would, Eric can correct me, but I believe it applies to any.
It applies to any, and it's important to note there are a couple of ors in there. It's either they're elevated like a building would be elevated, or they're licensed and road ready, meaning they can drive away in the event of a flood, or they're on the site for 180 or fewer days. So one or the other or the other. So if you have a recreational vehicle on a site for more than 180 days and it is not licensed and road ready, then it would have to be elevated.
Yep. Oh, cool, interesting. All right, and just for example, now this is not a recreational vehicle, but say with an existing agricultural use. And if a farm wanted to, say, continue operating, just as they are, would they have to make any changes if this new bylaw were approved?
Any existing use can continue. Any building that exists can continue to exist without being changed unless that building is substantially improved, and that's regulated under the building code. A substantial improvement is defined as any improvement to the building which cost 50% or more the value of the building prior to the improvement. So typically a building can remain the way it is without any changes being required unless it is substantially improved.
Yeah, maybe what about like, say, like replacing a fence like in the existing location of the previous fence?
That would, if somebody has a fence and they want to replace it or repair it, I don't see that. It would have to be reviewed by the floodplain administrator and determined if any changes happening because of it. But reviewed and approved. But if it was pre-existing and they're replacing it, I wouldn't see a problem with that.
Yeah, I remember, just if anyone remembers, at the time last year, there had to be like kind of like a local farm related thing happening that sort of involved the planning board and some other boards. And it just made me wonder, I don't think that area was even in the floodplain district. I looked it up, but it just made me wonder like how this actually affects like kind of like a existing use like that. So I think that clears it up, that there are some, this does do something. It's not just like a revamp. It does add some language to our bylaw that could at least require like a little more review than is currently required in what we have. It seems that way to me.
It might, Stephanie would know that better than I, and I think she's addressed that.
Yep. And has FEMA like kind of issued like a final deadline for towns to either comply or lose their insurance?
They have not, but when we came out with the new model bylaw in 2020, we had a plan and a timeline that we were wanting to follow because basically every community in the state is going to have to update their local regulations to meet this model bylaw. So we had different ways of looking at communities. Communities that are having mapping updates have to update their bylaws anyway, because that's a requirement anyway. So we said any community that has a mapping update will have to update, when the mapping update requires that, and they'll have to meet the model bylaw. And then we have other communities that don't have a mapping update, like Easton. Communities that have a visit from my office will have to update their regulations. And I did visit Easton in 2020. I met with staff from the building department and also Elizabeth Kulaharis, who was there in Easton at the time. So I met in 2020, and that's when I first reviewed the bylaw and said, okay, some of these things have to be updated. So, and then originally we thought that all communities would have their bylaws updated by, I think, 2022, which was, wishful thinking. And then we had the pandemic right after, and that threw our whole timeline off. So to answer your question, FEMA does not have a hard and fast deadline that they are saying Easton must update by here. But like I said, I visited Easton, and usually the way we do this is we expect a community to update their regulation at the earliest opportunity, which usually for a town would mean the next town meeting. Like I said, I visited in 2020, and the town meeting in 2020 wasn't going to happen. So I spoke with Jennifer Carlino last summer and said, okay, we have to start doing this. So we were hoping spring town meeting of 2023, and that didn't happen. So then we said, okay, well, fall town meeting, if you can do it, we'd really like to see it done by then. I don't think FEMA's going to say, okay, you're in trouble now that you didn't adopt it at the fall town meeting. It's
coming eventually, right? Yeah.
We would like very much to see it happen here. But
okay. Yeah, we're not trying to like subordinate anything. Just ask the question so we understand what this is about. And I think you've answered those for me. Does anyone else have any questions, or does anyone from the public care to raise their hand and ask a question about this zoning bylaw change that's proposed?
I do not see any hands raised, Peter.
I know. Bob, Kathy, Mickey, is this, are you good with this?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, in that case, what we would start by closing the public hearing, at which point we can't really ask for too much more information. And if we were so inclined, someone could make a motion to recommend or not recommend this for the fall town meeting.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that, Stetson.
Okay. All right, all in favor, Wolf,
Aye.
Stetson,
Aye.
Kidd,
Aye.
okay.
I'll make a motion to recommend the zoning amendment for town meeting, Stetson.
Second, Wolf.
Okay, all in favor, Kidd,
Aye.
Stetson,
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
And DeShane, aye. That passes. Thank you, Mr. Council. That was very helpful. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Eric.
Have a nice night. All right, I think we'll go back to the regular schedule of the agenda. So with next being continued public hearing for 10 Morris Road, special permit duplex, South Shore Habitat for Humanity. At the last meeting, we were looking at kind of the proposed structure plans and had some questions and suggestions about the actual, design of this duplex, so that it seemed like it would make sure it conforms with our duplex requirements in the bylaw.
Stephanie,
Particularly the definition section of the shared wall.
Noreen, do you have a Paul Bolio who?
yes, please. And-
Yes, we do.
And Sherry Green.
Hello, thanks for coming. I guess I just introduced it, so if you want to start off and kind of start back off where we left off last time, looking at the structure.
Sure. Sure. Thank you, Mr.
Paul has
Chairman.
the plans to share as well. If you can give Paul sharing rights or sharing permission.
Yeah, that's Habitat for Humanity's architect, Paul
I'm
Bola.
sorry, Paul, Paul Bolio, and I just,
Yeah, so whoever wants to start off here, you can just.
okay, I'm trying to promote
introduce
Sherry.
yourself, and then we'll, you should be able to share your screen once
Yeah.
Stephanie promotes everyone.
Okay, great. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, my name is Dylan Brown and my office represents South Shore Habitat for Humanity. Along with me tonight is Noreen Brown and Sherry Green from Habitat for Humanity, as well as their architect, Paul Bole from Main Street Architects. To recap, South Shore Habitat for Humanity is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is contracted to purchase the vacant parcel of land located at 10 Morris Road in Easton, Massachusetts from the town of Easton's Affordable Housing Trust Fund, specifically in response to the town's request for proposals of June 20th of last year. The South Shore Habitat for Humanity was awarded the right to purchase 10 Morris Road for the purpose of constructing an affordable duplex thereon, but more importantly, pursuant to its purchase agreement with the town, the future sale of these two dwellings is going to be restricted to qualified first-time home buyers. And this will be accomplished by placing an affordable restriction on the deed to the property. Now, 10 Morse Road is located in a residential zoning district, and pursuant to section 235-13 of the Easton zoning bylaw, a special permit is required in order to construct a duplex in this location. At last meeting, South Shore Habitat for Humanity, the meeting last month, presented its special permit application, and the planning board had some concerns with the design of the project, namely whether or not the proposed design meets the traditional definition of a duplex. However, at the last meeting, the planning board didn't have the luxury of reviewing floor plans, which is going to detail the location where these two buildings are connected, and it also wasn't able to speak with Habitat for Humanity's architect. So tonight, the purposes is that Paul Bole for Habitat for Humanity is going to explain the location that these two dwellings are connected and explain why the project was designed in this fashion. So with that, I will turn it over to Paul and he can take it from here.
How we doing? Thank you very much, everybody. Sorry I had a previous commitment last time. I wish I could have attended to answer some of these questions, hopefully. But today we're here to just talk about these two projects that are here before you. Basically, we were looking at a different project before. I believe it was 163 Rockland Street. There was kind of a couple capes that were joined together. Just kind of how can we take this lot and blend it into a single family neighborhood where we're not doing your traditional duplex, I guess, is what we were originally first informed to look at. So that brought us to this direction where we got two capes. We talked about corner connection, where can that connection be? And then obviously what's the overlap? So as you can see from the floor plans here, which we've made adjustments, we try to keep bedrooms away from shared walls, stuff like that. Obviously, anyone who has any sort of multi-unit knows that it's usually noise is like the first complaint. So it's a big thing for Habitat, obviously, where we're doing affordable housing and we have to monitor these things. The less we can have of those issues, the better off we typically are. So obviously we overlapped as much as we could, given our window layout. We put our first floor bedroom, as we were asked here, we put full bathroom, 2 bedrooms on the second floor, again, full bathroom. If you look at here with the overlap here, we talked about porticos and front covering, but given the dormers and some roof overlays, and we are in New England with snow, I don't really like all those valleys. So we did as much as we could here to try to blend the two together. If you look at the top left, that's actually what you would see from the street view. So again, we're trying, from what we were originally told in the beginning when we first kind of acquired this project, we're trying to make this not look like your traditional, I guess, duplex, it would make it seem, to blend in a little bit better to that neighborhood. And then the last one is the other elevations, the 2 rears.
So it looks like these two parts of components of the duplex are now sharing a common wall in one section.
They're sharing a common wall in one section. Yep.
All right. Yeah. And, as you know, like each one of these are different, right?
Yeah.
This one, I think, in my mind, kind of fits what we think of a duplex as, given that it's not like 2 4-bedroom houses just connected by something, right? They're a little bit smaller and they're made to be affordable, or less expensive at least, right? And that's
Correct.
kind of the idea here. And it looks to me like you accomplished that. Possibly on other projects that might have been mentioned by, in some guidance, which, I apologize if that put you on the wrong track there. If you think about some other, approved duplexes, some could be set quite a ways back behind trees, and maybe we look at that a little bit differently, right, than others that are out front. But in this case, given your, kind of proposed use and where you've come from here, this looks good to me. Do any other board members have any comments or questions or suggestions for this project?
And I can rotate through. Thank you, Peter. I can rotate through if anyone has questions, if they want a specific plan.
Mhm.
And Mr. Chairman and Peter, I think you could probably point this out. In addition, on the site plan, they added landscaping, which was requested from the board at last month's meeting, as well as the contours on there.
Right. Yep. I checked that out in the plan there. So thanks, but good point there.
Understood.
Yeah. I mean, what's it going to look like out front? If you're driving past and you're kind of looking at the structure on the right. I mean, I guess my concern last time, and I still sort of have this concern, is that we really are talking about essentially 2 small single family homes that are sort of nominally joined together. I still think it kind of looks that way, but to Peter's point, if there's some coverage out front that sort of diminishes what you see from the road, I mean, maybe not as concerned about it.
Maybe it could just be that we just don't know if there's a whole, if that whole other corner were filled in, it would be a regular big house, right? But it just so happens that it's not filled in and it's open, so it's a smaller structure. I just thought of a different way, right?
And we could do our best with landscaping on that side to try to blend as much as we can. Obviously, we're parking over there too, so we'd want to. So we can look at that a little bit, evolve.
Yeah, I mean, that would help. Because well, because I mean, I'm not, when I look at the elevation from the front, I don't see that. It looks to me like 2 houses that are kind of just arranged in a sort of odd way. I mean, I'm not saying that's enough for me to, I mean, this is an admirable project. And it's, but that's kind of my take.
Yeah, no, you're right, and that's that's why I was kind of, the way I was looking at it was like, every situation is a little different. One that might have kind of been like the inspiration for this is a little bit different, where it's just set way back. And to be honest, I was there. I think I'm the only person that might have been on the board at that point. So I don't really know why that has turned into like kind of some model for some or inspiration for some newer projects. But it's possible that I was the only person on the board at that time, and there was a lot of discussion about whether or not that what I think ended up being a breezeway even fulfilled the bylaw. And it was kind of my big hang up there. I eventually just kind of the other board members felt strongly that seemed like a good idea at the time, for whatever reason they did. And given that it was behind a bunch of trees, I just sort of just I let that one go, so to speak. Maybe that was a bad idea. But on this one, you have your own project here, your own proposal, and you're working on doing some good things. But Rob brings up a good point there about how that might just look like a slightly awkwardly designed like front of a house. If even if we were to kind of guess that this were like a one structure. But I don't know, Rob, what do you think? Do we want to see more landscaping there, or just
yeah. I mean, refresh my memory, Paul, what's out there now? I mean, this was a pretty heavily wooded area, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Hold on.
Yeah, right. And the septic's all over to the corner, so I mean, there is like some space there to accommodate like some trees or something, right? Even if the lot was cleared, and now it's pretty much
yeah, it's pretty heavily wooded.
Yeah, so maybe that makes me think a little bit differently about it, because I mean, to Peter's point, we have looked at somewhat similar projects in the past, and we have used the vegetation out front to kind of change our view or look at the definition maybe a little bit more laxly than we otherwise would have. So if you tell me there's a lot of vegetation out front there, then we can keep some of it. That maybe alleviates my concerns.
Yep. And then do the contours in the backyard still allow for like kind of like a usable space for families, for like backyard type activities?
Yep. All this grade here will get reworked a little bit.
Yeah, that slope's
And they're
really
both coming out to this area, so they kind of each come out to an area to have a good yard.
Yeah, so there's a little space back there, and okay, so if we made a condition that kind of the area, at least kind of not over the septic system, but the area like at the end of in front of that front like part of the house remained somewhat wooded, would that be acceptable?
Noreen, can you speak to that on your end?
Yeah, I have been, I also haven't been out there probably a couple of months now, but yes, I mean, we do very little, we take down as few trees as possible,
Yeah, especially if they're not in the way of septic and house, we typically leave as much as we can, exactly.
And there's some big trees on that site, so that just adds expense, so we typically don't just clear. So we can take a look and see what's out front, and we can leave as much as we can, as long as it doesn't interfere with the septic.
And Noreen, correct me if I'm wrong. None of that lot is cleared yet as of today. Okay, so that could be doable.
Yeah, nothing's been cleared, but it's not completely wooded either. There is a bit of space in there.
In there, yeah, yep, yeah. From when I last saw it, I haven't been there in a while either. But we could easily, like Noreen said, we work around stuff like that. We're trying to do affordable housing, so we're trying to limit as much as we can of that end as well.
I mean, I'd love to be able to, and I don't want to hold up the project. So if a general condition is what everybody feels is appropriate here, that's fine with me. I would prefer to see some identification of what would remain on the plan. That's just my preference, but I throw that out just for discussion.
Right, so, I mean, we could make a condition that that is put out, we have that added to the plan. You might not have to come back to us to look at.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure that, and we haven't really seen really much, kind of like a confirmation that there are, in fact, like some reasonable amount of, vegetation there in the first place. Although, I mean, from
We
the
could
street view I
provide-
saw, it looked like there was, but.
We could provide pictures and kind of general outline of where we want to leave stuff, if that helps to make it, pretty simple for you.
And that's in front of unit 2 more so, right? Is that what you're saying, where
Mhm.
unit 2 is,
Mhm.
between unit 2 and the
Yeah,
driveway?
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yep.
Back to septic, okay.
And then we'll talk about the septic system and we'll look at what we think, if there's any limitations there, if we have any, and we'll let you know. But we
Yeah,
can,
it looks like the septic tank is behind the leaching field, is that?
yes,
that
so
what
we
you
shouldn't
said?
really have any issues, exactly.
And did you already do your perk test and locate that, like identify that as the like desired area for the?
The perk tests were done in early September, and they were witnessed by Mark Taylor. We don't have.
Okay, yeah, so the engineer has sent some input and based on the perk test, thinks that that's a good location for the septic system.
Correct.
Okay. Seems like we're getting somewhere here. So, Bob, what do you think? Do you want to, would like to kind of maybe see some pictures about what's in that section, just so we really.
Yeah, if they could throw between now and next hearing, if they could give us a couple of pictures and then throw some of the vegetation that they think they can keep on the plan.
Yeah.
I'm fine with this.
Yeah, right, yeah. And you don't have to like pay the surveyor to go out there and locate those and pay the to put them on the plan. But they'll know what to do as far as like, marking some like, approximate location of some existing vegetation that can be saved.
Yeah, between myself and them, I can Photoshop some highlight over some trees as well. We can get creative to show you what we're thinking.
Perfect.
And like we said, we always do the best we can. We're not trying to clear cut. That's not our motto by any means.
Okay, looks like Thomas Cook, I think he was one of the Thomas Crook, one of the neighbors who had some kind of helpful information about like how that lot actually looks, is raising his hand. So let's hear from him. Hello, Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Tom Crook, and I live at One Morse Road in southeastern Massachusetts. And just a couple things. On the lot, well, first of all, I think this is an arable situation. Yeah. So, I mean, I think everybody on the area is for it. But, to understand the lot, it's probably, don't quote me, but it is heavily wooded. There's probably 75 to 100 trees on this lot, and they're not 10-foot trees. They're very, very tall, and they come right to the street. So there would have to be vegetation or bushes planted to support that. Nothing there would be able to stay, I doubt. That's my opinion. So that's just to give some clarity. And and I was reading some of the prior notes also, that the reasons that the homes are sort of near Morse Road to the street is behind, I'm sure, is protected wetlands, because the whole area is pretty much wetlands. And I read that in some of the earlier meetings. So I think that's something that has to be looked at. And I was just curious, I really can't read on the plans how close the home is to the, what's that, about 30 feet from that house on the right to the street? Is that about right?
47.5 feet to the property line, and then the road's a little further.
Okay, great.
Right, yeah, and then in the back, you can see actually like the the kind of the wetland. So that shows that there is some space there for a backyard.
Absolutely, but
along the front, we understand like the house area and the driveway and kind of in front of the house there on the left has to be cleared. But we were talking about maybe saving some existing vegetation in front of that part of the house that sticks out towards the street. And it sounds like, based on what you just told us, is maybe some of the trees would be way too big and they'll have to come down, but others are probably for for every 60-foot tree, there's probably a few, like 20 and 40-foot ones that would be nice, worth saving and would grow after a little time, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chairman. And I'm not a landscaper, so that's what it's just my opinion. And the last thing I had just on, I don't know if Easton has a code on like a width of a street. Is there any
Well, we do for
town
new
code?
streets, new streets have, the zoning bylaw that has requirements for like, street widths depending on how big they are and what purpose they're serving. But we don't really have any regulations that say if you build a new house on an existing street, you have to make the street a certain width.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
don't know how wide Morse Road is, how wide the layout is, and maybe if
it's probably no more than 20 feet wide.
yeah,
So
yeah.
plus I think we have a house going at like 5. I don't know. There's 2 houses. I mean, there's one being completed now that's being built on Morse Road, and then this will be on Morse Road. So I don't know if
you look at like the lot line there, right? Say along the road, you'll see where like the kind of the road, the actual road is, and where the road easement is. So you see that driveway apron actually kind of like funnels out. That's into the town road easement, which is kind of a common thing to do. But at the same time, if the town ever decided that they wanted to widen that road, that funnel part would be turned into road if the town decided to do that. But so that'd be up to the town to widen that road there, and the property owners that might have things on that part of the road easement, they might lose them, just like any other road that gets.
Yeah, that's fine.
Within its easement.
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if the process is to see what the traffic is on a road to determine if it's wide enough, to support because we have traffic on it now, and we'll have increased traffic with new homes going in, but people use that road more than you would think. So that was my only concern.
Right, yeah, people like pull over like just to kind of look at their phone, or they're not sure where they're going, right? Yeah, or whatever. Yeah,
well, they use it for a cut through if there's traffic backed up at Southeastern Regional.
Oh,
they cut down that road. They think that they're going to loop around and avoid it.
Well, that's something for the town to look at, I think, because that's not really going to be affected by this house or the one next to it, right? That's kind of right. Yeah.
Fine. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I would ask is the people to go out and really understand what's going on at the lot and understand so they can speak, to you folks exactly what's happening with what that lot looks like and what the plans moving forward. So
yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So are the applicants comfortable just doing the small amount of work that we talked about for the next meeting?
Yep.
Yeah, so just to clarify, we'd be coming back for the next hearing with pictures and maybe something thrown on the plan, as opposed to having it that as a condition to the approval. Just so we have our marching orders.
Yep, that's all I can think of. Bob, did you have any other?
Yeah, that was my thought, that we would just get everything on the plan and then we'd just be able to,
okay,
give it
and
an
avoid the
approval
condition.
And hopefully it'll be a quick review for you guys. I know it'll be your 3rd time back, so.
Yeah.
Peter, may I ask a question?
Yes, please.
The pictures are going to be of the lot as it exists today, or from the road, looking at the lot?
I think we were really just thinking about that section there that would be kind of screening and to talk to the engineer about how the screening, if it would affect that septic system, which seems far enough away to me. And then give us an idea of what can happen in there. Well, that maybe a little farther back from that too.
Yeah.
Since you just missed, you just circled inside like the center line of the road there, so I don't know if there's any trees there. Yeah.
I guess what I'm asking, are we talking photographs or renderings? I just want to be clear, so when we get something from the applicant, we know it's what the board was looking for.
I was going to do photographs from the road with stuff on the site plan, and then we can put it in Photoshop and kind of try to highlight trees from the road, what we're trying to keep. Just trying to keep it simple for Habitat.
Yeah, I think that goes along the lines of what we talked about.
Thank you.
But yeah, more on the area of the circle, not the big oval, because the big oval is like half in the road, so, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I just tried to draw it quick. That's what
Oh,
I
that's
got.
okay. No, yeah, no problem. That's good. Yeah, I'm bad at, I can't draw with my mouse either. Yes, okay, gotcha.
Better by hand.
Okay, yeah, so we can continue to the next meeting. We usually make a motion for that, for the record.
Motion to continue, Stetson?
Second, Wolf.
Okay, all in favor, Stetson,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Kid,
Aye.
and, okay, and DeShane, aye. Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yep, okay, we're getting there. Okay, now up next is the special permit for a new residential compound application, but that one has been continued, so I don't think we need to open that public hearing at this point. Does that make sense, Stephanie?
Right.
Okay, so do we even continue something that hasn't been opened yet?
You do need to vote to continue
We
it.
need to vote.
Okay,
Make a motion to continue the public hearing at Nigan Estates, Stetson?
Second, Wolf.
okay, all in favor, Wolf,
Aye.
Kid?
Aye.
Oh,
Stetson?
and do we have a date, Suzanne? I missed
To the next meeting,
Which is
November 6th.
Yeah, November 6th.
Stetson's aye.
Okay, and DeShane, aye. All right. We're continuing that item to the November 6th. So we have Goodspeed Estates Back Cut LLC modification of subdivision. It was kind of I think we talked about a minor modification. Actually, it was the light posts. Oh, yeah, determination of minor change to plan. So
They
it's
have
like-
also asked to continue.
oh wow, okay. Maybe they need more information about their.
I think no one on their end was able to make the meeting tonight.
Oh, okay. All right.
Motion to continue to the next hearing, Stetson?
Second, Wolf.
Okay, all in favor, Stetson,
Aye.
Kid,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
DeShane, aye. Okay. Right along here. Architectural review Old Forge Commons.
And Ethan Ekstrom is here to talk about that.
You guys,
Ethan, hi.
am I good to take it away?
Yeah, yes, please do.
Sounds good. So thanks for having me. I'm representing Bill Humphrey tonight. He was unable to make it, and I am the architectural designer for this project, for this lot. If I could share my screen, I will just share the design that he'd like to propose, and then hopefully we can move forward with it. So the general overview is that we were keeping it
I could just
consistent with-
interrupt 1 second. I'm sorry, Mr. Ekstrom. Is this South Street?
Yes.
Yes.
Uh,
I apologize for that. I should have recognized this. I'm just gonna jump off. I have to recuse myself.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Bob.
Sorry, apology.
Yep, you're good.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
So we tried to keep this in keeping with the other designs in the neighborhood. The goal was to have some farmhouse style colonials with some architectural flair to them. And this is what we try to do. If I could call out some of the materials that are standard in the neighborhood that we're carrying through on this project as well. We're going to have vertical board and batten siding accents in a few locations, one being the garage and then the other being this main peak here. We've got PVC columns on the exterior, and then we've got carriage house garage doors in keeping with the remaining designs in the neighborhood. And then we've also got a metal roof accent as well, which provides a little bit of difference in the texture. And then we've got architectural roofing shingles, pretty standard. So that's a general overview of the materials, and then I'll just kind of show you guys the other elevations. This is the right side, pretty standard. They're all 4/0 grid windows, double hung windows mostly, with some casement and awning windows. And this is the rear. We've got a porch on the back. And then this is the left elevation. And that's about it from the outside.
All right, thanks. Stephanie, do you, have you seen like the material list here? Does this sort of,
Yes,
Right,
I took
what
a
we
look
talked
at
about.
it and it conforms with what has been proposed for the other buildings.
all right, and, Ethan, is this one of the ones like to the back, like at the kind of the back of the cul-de-sac there that where there were a few being worked on, or is this a new one?
It is, so it's lot number 13. So the lots that wrap around the cul-de-sac, I believe, are like 10, 11, 12, 13. So this is kind of at the rear of the neighborhood on the left side of the cul-de-sac as you're driving in.
Yep. But is this one
and
already, is it already framed out or not?
No,
Okay.
work has not begun on this lot. We're going
right.
for the approvals. For
Oh,
the
so it's a little
building
more
permit.
like to the left of, like if you go more like 3/4 around that cul-de-sac. Okay, yeah.
Yes,
I can figure
yep,
that out.
and lot 12 to the right of it is almost complete, and lot 14 to the left of it is almost complete as well.
All right, yeah, so this is the one that was between those and right, yeah, okay.
That's right. Yep.
No, you know, I don't really have any questions or suggestions for you here. It seems to go along with what we've been talking about in the last few months.
Yep.
Does anyone else have any questions? Otherwise, we really just, you know, it's just architectural review. We talked and met with the developer and, you know, talked about how a plan, you know, for these special permits, so we have a little more input on the architecture. And we developed a plan, and this seems to go along with that plan. So that's why, unless anything is a major, like, you know, question or kind of if it varies from what we've talked about before, or if we have any great ideas, it's not really a lot more to discuss here. If there's not much more discussion, just have to, someone would have to make it. You know, the chair doesn't usually make a motion, usually someone else does, so I have to kind of wait for someone else to make a motion to either approve this or disapprove it.
My bad. Okay, sorry. I'll make a motion to approve. Wolf.
Is there a second?
Second, Kid.
All right, thanks. And okay, all in favor? Wolf?
Aye.
Kid?
Aye.
Yep, and DeShane, aye. Okay, thank you, Ethan.
Great. Thanks, guys. I appreciate
Good
it.
night. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a tradition or what, with the, you know, the chair not making the motion, but it's been that way ever since I've been on the planning board, and I think it is similar to with other boards. Stephanie, is that true?
Well, a chair can make a motion. Usually, they wait until someone else does, but if it's necessary to move something forward one way or another.
Yeah, no, but
chair
in
can.
general, it doesn't. Yeah, in general, it's just not the way it works. But yeah, for some reason.
The gentle prompting worked. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Bob, you can rejoin us if you'd like to. They'd probably rather. We only have a couple more items, so if you want to rejoin.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm here.
Okay.
So-
Joke.
Can you see me?
We have a ZBA request for
So
comment.
Peter,
Yeah.
before you go to CBA, we did have the community housing MBTA zoning on the agenda as a
What is
continued
there?
public
Okay.
hearing.
Oh, okay. Do you have an update there for us?
Really, I think what we just wanted to do was let everyone know that we held the first public information session on October 11th.
Yep.
There were, I would say there were probably up to 20 people in the audience from the public at various points in time. We received a lot of comments. A large number of the people in attendance were from the Foundry Street area, the Furnace Village District area. And I don't think we heard any comments that we haven't heard already, which is concern over the traffic, concern that, you know, the Foundry District, the Eastman Foundry site is taking most of, or right now is kind of absorbing most of the proposed zoning.
Wow.
But other than that, I think that was really the main concerns seemed to be around the traffic. That
Yep. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, there
concern.
are some people from the Foundry Street area that kind of reiterated some of their concerns, and maybe there are a few new voices there on that. So I think that's, yeah, really something, we'll have another session coming up. And, I think we should, really consider, their input there. And we have plenty of space.
Oh.
But I don't want to, they're not here tonight. I just don't want to get into too much, since, since the people with the, that have been talking about it aren't here. I'd say we just kind of hold off unless anyone has anything really important to say.
I also wanted to let the board know that we've set dates for the next 3 public sessions. So on 12/5, between 5 and 7 o'clock, and we'll provide more details in a week or so. We're planning an open house style public input session where there'll be poster boards displaying the different districts, having the proposed zoning code available on a board, and members, we would like to invite all the members of the committee from the board to also participate, but to be there, have people come in, explain what the zoning is about, and answer questions and collect comments at that point in time. Then on February 13th, between 6 and 8, we do another remote meeting with folks. Again, making sure we're capturing a broad representation of the town as possible. And again, that would be kind of giving any updates, if we've heard anything at that point from this state, from the Department or Office of Housing and Livable Communities on our draft zoning. And then on 4/9, getting close to town meeting time, do another open house style meeting.
Yeah, sounds like a good schedule to me. Have a bit of time to review everything and have a few more meetings, and hopefully come up with a good solution to this. Yeah. Any other comments, members, public? Stephanie, do you think we should need to keep that open on every agenda, or is it every other agenda, or what do you think?
I don't know that we need to keep it on for the next meeting, but I would suggest the meeting after.
Yep, that's what I was thinking. All right, sounds good.
What's the date on that? November 18th?
It would be.
That would be November 20th.
20th.
20th, excuse me.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing to November 20th. Stetson.
Second, Wolf.
Okay, all in favor, Stetson?
Aye.
Kidd?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Thank you, Bob. All right, so ZBA request for comment variance 23-12, 68 Prospect Street. This is kind of a continuation, I think, of the other.
Do you want me to give a summary of this one,
Yeah, sure.
Peter?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the board will recall, and let me get there in my, so I can display it for everybody. The board will recall that this came before the board for site plan review. Let me share my screen. This is the golf course, and they want to construct a new building in close proximity to the existing building. So you can see right here, I think they've actually changed this a little bit, but the planning board approved the site plan approval and took no stance on whether this violated the zoning bylaw, which requires 40 feet of distance between the sides of any existing building and another building on the site. They have gone, they got a determination from the building inspector that it did not comply with zoning. So they are appealing to the Board of Appeals for a variance. Now, the way they've submitted the variance, they've submitted it for a use. It's not really a use variance that they need, it's a dimensional variance. They already have a special permit that allows the use on this property. This is commercial recreation, which requires a special permit for use within the residential district, which is where the site is located. But they would need a dimensional variance to allow this construction of the building so close to the wall.
Yeah,
What they
and I think
don't-
I think what's happening here is that, you know, like maybe like kind of like a, I don't know if it's called like a spec type steel building is just, you know, probably more economical to build than an addition. And it might just kind of like at first glance say, oh, well, why can't you just make a new building and just kind of like half attach it to this existing building? But I actually did ask someone that sort of kind of knows about some of these things. And, you know, if eventually, depending on the size and other parameters, if you create an addition to a structure, you know, commercial structure of a certain size or a certain value, then, you know, the whole existing building, you might have to bring it up to like the new energy code, which, you know, if you might have heard is a little bit more of an onerous task than it sounds like, especially for, you know, a larger, older building like that existing one. So I think there are a lot of financial considerations here, and possibly I think this makes a little bit of sense to me. So, sorry, Stephanie, sorry I interrupted, but
Yeah, no, and that's really the comment that I have is that their brief doesn't really explain that. And there would be another option to the variance, which would be that you'd construct it as an addition. Really, the site doesn't lend itself to moving the building, and it doesn't really make sense from a use standpoint because the use is really associated with the active, the golf use of the building. So what Peter said is true. I believe that came up in conversation when I raised the question when they came to the planning board that it will probably trigger bringing the existing building up to code, which could be quite an expensive proposition.
well, yeah, I mean, probably, I think it's probably just the, you know, the energy code, right? The stretch code, not like they have to rebuild the building because it was not under the current, like, you know, building code, but.
Well, there's a point at which it triggers accessibility as well. I
Oh,
don't
right, yeah,
know.
good point, yeah, and sprinklers, if there aren't sprinklers, right, yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a lot going on there.
Yeah. So,
Anyone have any comments there? I mean, do we have enough to?
We approved the site plan. I think we ought to recommend it, but you know, the variance issue I think is an interesting one, and that's
Yeah.
up to the ZBA.
Yeah. Yeah, is that a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to recommend the variance.
Right, is there a second? Any further
I will
discussion?
second Wolf.
Oh, okay. All right, in that case, all in favor, Kid,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Stetson.
Aye.
All right, DeShane, aye. All right, that passes. Next, we have meeting minutes from October 2nd. You know, I didn't have a lot of time to review these, but if anyone else did, I'll trust you.
I reviewed them, they looked okay. I'll motion to approve the minutes.
The second, Stetson.
Okay, all in favor, Wolf?
Aye.
Stetson,
Aye.
Kid,
Aye.
DeShane, aye. That passes. No, you know, really, the only update I would have had maybe was about how the informational session for MBTA zoning went, but I think Stephanie did a good job with that. Stephanie, do you have any other updates?
no, not at the moment.
No? All right. In
Motion
that case,
to
looks like we're ready to wrap up here unless anyone else has anything to bring up.
I'll second the motion. Stetson?
Okay. All in favor? DeShane, aye. Stetson?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
And Kid?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Well, good night.
Good night.